It's late on the strip again. The kind of late where Vegas feels less like a city and more like a glowing mirage floating above the desert. Neon is still pulsing, the sidewalks are still crowded, and the casinos are still breathing out music and heat into the night air. But down on the asphalt, the mood is different, colder, sharper, almost clinical. Because tonight, Las Vegas isn't selling you an illusion. Tonight, it's asking Formula One a real question. Can the championship be decided, or derailed on a circuit that lives in the middle of the loudest street in America? The Las Vegas Grand Prix in 2025 arrives with something it didn't have 2 years ago: gravity. Not just glamour, not just marketing fireworks, gravity. This race is one of the final stops before the season ends, and the title fight rolls into Nevada with the kind of tension you can feel in your ribs. Look at the numbers. Lando Norris leads the championship. Oscar Piastri is right there behind him. And Max Verstappen, the man who owned this era for so long, is still close enough to haunt every strategy meeting, even if the mountain he needs to climb is getting steeper by the week. McLaren, as a team, hasn't just risen. They've surged. Their constructors' lead is so big that the rest of the paddock is basically fighting for second place. And that changes everything. Because when your two drivers are both hunting the same crown, every race becomes a psychological chess match disguised as a sprint. That's the backdrop. Now, added Las Vegas. This circuit is still young, but it already has a personality. The strip layout is basically a contradiction on wheels. Insanely long straights that punish drag, stitched to tight, wall-lined corners that punish confidence. It's a track where you spend half a lap holding your breath in braking zones, and the other half keeping the throttle pinned while the city blurs into a tunnel of LED light. And then there's the cold. Vegas is a night race in the desert, and by the time the lights go out, the air drops towards single-digit Celsius temperatures. That makes tire warm-up brutal. The surface is smooth, almost glossy, and it doesn't offer the gentle, predictable grip that drivers love. Heat disappears quickly on outlaps, and anyone who underestimates that can lose a race before the first pit stop even matters. So if you're wondering why this weekend feels like a coin flip for some teams, that's the reason. The cars that switch tires on quickly, that can bring the fronts and rears into the window without chewing them to pieces, have a built-in advantage here. The cars that struggle with warm-up or need a lap or two to come alive, they're vulnerable, especially in qualifying. And qualifying in Vegas is the whole story. You can't really hide on this track. The straights are too long, the DRS zone's too punishing. If you start behind the wrong car, you spend half the lap staring at a rear wing you can't pass. So when teams talk about Saturday night being everything, they're not being dramatic. They're describing survival. Now, the 2025 season has taught us something obvious and something surprising. The obvious part, McLaren is the reference. Their car is efficient on the straights, stable through the slow speed stuff, and, maybe most importantly for Vegas, it looks gentle on tires in tricky temperature swings. They've mastered the soft touch kind of pace that wins modern F1. Not just a fast lap, but 10 fast laps in a row without the tires falling off a cliff. The surprising part, Mercedes isn't far away anymore. Late season upgrades and a clearer direction have pulled them back into the fight on certain tracks. A rookie like Kimi Antonelli standing on podiums this year isn't just a nice headline. It's proof the car can play at the front when conditions line up. In Vegas, those conditions might actually line up. Why? Because Mercedes has been strong in low-grip, cold window races where balance and traction matter more than raw downforce. They also tend to be brave on strategy, the kind of team that'll gamble a pit stop if the data says there's a narrow door to victory. Then we have Red Bull. Here's the weird truth about 2025. Red Bull is still dangerous, but not inevitable. Verstappen can pull something out of nothing. We've seen him do it again and again, even from compromised starts. But the car is no longer the bullet it used to be. It's fast, yes, especially when the track rewards straight-line muscle. But it's more temperature-sensitive than before, and Vegas is a freezer with glitter on top. Ferrari, meanwhile, feels like the wild card you're afraid to bet on. They've had flashes of real pace this year, but also weekends that fell apart quickly. Vegas should, on paper, suit a car with good traction and strong top end. But Ferrari's biggest enemy hasn't been speed. It's been keeping everything in the right window at the right time. Cold nights and chaotic safety cars are the exact kind of environment that magnifies that weakness. So let's walk through how this race is likely to unfold. First, practice will be messy. The strip is open to normal traffic during the week, which means the track begins the weekend green and slick. Grip builds in waves as rubber goes down, and with cooler temperatures, that grip can disappear when clouds roll in or the wind shifts between buildings. There's also been rain in the area leading into the weekend, and even if race night ends up dry, damp sessions early on can reset the surface and scramble the usual clues teams look for. That sets up a qualifying session where timing might matter as much as talent. If you hit the track at the wrong moment, you're skating. If you catch the perfect window, you look like a genius. We've seen this story already in Vegas. A driver finds a lap where the tires finally bite, the brakes finally feel alive, and for 90 seconds the city becomes their private runway. Expect McLaren to be right there. Their biggest question isn't pace. It's politics. How hard do Norris and Piastri fight each other when the margins are already razor thin? Because in Vegas, fighting your teammate can cost both of you. One slightly defensive line down the strip, one compromised outlap, and Verstappen or Russell is suddenly living in your mirrors. Race day is where Vegas gets cruel. Tire strategy here is about managing cold surface degradation without sacrificing track position. A one-stop is usually the cleanest idea, but it only works if the tires behave. And in Vegas, they don't always behave. A safety car can flip the whole plan in seconds, and this circuit is almost designed for safety cars. Walls close in, braking zones are heavy, and the speed differentials are big enough for tiny mistakes to become expensive ones. So the finish often comes down to three things: who starts in clean air, who nails the pit window, and who keeps tires alive in the final 15 laps when the track is its coldest. Now, predictions. Let's start with the most likely shape of the race. McLaren is the favorite, not because they're invincible, but because their strengths match Vegas perfectly. Efficient straight-line speed, reliable braking, and a tire profile that doesn't panic when the surface drops 10 degrees. See, if the weekend runs normally, no freak weather, no massive first-lap chaos, a McLaren win is the baseline expectation. But which McLaren? If Norris qualifies ahead, he has the edge. He's been clinical this season in converting pole-adjacent starts into wins, and he's been the calmest driver under championship pressure. Vegas rewards that calm. It's a track that tempts you to overdrive, to chase lap time you don't have. Norris has been excellent at refusing that trap. If Piastri qualifies ahead, the race becomes more volatile. Piastri is blisteringly fast when he's in rhythm, and Vegas could suit his sharp, high-commitment style. The risk is that aggressive tire use early can leave you naked late, especially if a safety car squeezes the field and forces another sprint. So, the prediction inside the prediction is this: McLaren wins. Unless they get in their own way. And if they do, the next best positioned team is Mercedes. Russell has the experience to manage a street circuit knife fight, and Antonelli has nothing to lose, which can be a terrifying advantage on a night like this. If Mercedes finds a setup that fires the tires quickly, they can absolutely steal a podium, maybe even a win, if the safety car lands in their lap at the right second. Verstappen will be there too. Even in a Red Bull that isn't peak dominant, Vegas offers enough straight-line reward to keep him in the conversation. But his path to victory probably requires an unusual weekend. A strategic swing, a perfectly timed pit stop under caution, or a McLaren-Mercedes collision of interests. Ferrari, possible podium, hard to trust for the win. Their ceiling is high, but their floor is low, and Vegas is not forgiving of teams that arrive without a clean, stable understanding of their tire behavior. So here's the clean, realistic forecast. Expect a McLaren on pole. Expect Norris and Piastri to be separated by a breath. Expect Verstappen to stalk them on the straight. Expect Mercedes to hover like a shark waiting for the water to churn. And expect Las Vegas to try to turn all of that into chaos. Because that's what this race is now. Not a novelty. Not a traveling circus, a real pressure cooker surrounded by the loudest backdrop in sport where every corner feels like a dare. When the checkered flag finally falls, the strip will go back to being what it always is, a place that convinces you anything can happen. But for a few cold hours in November, it won't be pretending. It will have proven it. That's the Las Vegas Grand Prix in 2025, the sport's glitziest stage and maybe its most unforgiving mirror. And if you want to know who's going to leave here with the momentum of a champion, watch who keeps their head when the city tries to steal it.